Rock Talk album reviews. It is time to do our homework for the week. Now, every week, I give Danton an album. He gives me an album I haven't heard. And then we come back usually a week later and we discuss the albums. So this week we have Kamelot, The Shadow Theory, which was given to me. It's Kamelot's latest album. Never heard it before. I kind of dropped off of Kamelot when Roy Khan left, their original singer or second singer, whatever he was. The singer on the albums I liked. And I gave you Megadeth Dystopia, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, man.
All right. Well, funny enough, Shadow Theory was also homework for me as well, because I haven't heard it. And, we did our whole power metal thing a couple weeks back, and I've been kind of dabbling and trying to check more stuff out. And I started that album not that long ago, and I listened to about half of it, and for whatever reason I didn't finish it. And I thought this week when I was listening to some stuff, I was like, well, let me finish that. And I was looking for things to give you, and we talked about it, and I'm okay, well, great, well, Jeff hasn't heard it, so I'll listen to it as a first impression, and that could be fun for us to talk about. So let's start with that. So what did you think about Shadow Theory?
You're throwing it back to me now. You don't want to talk about Megadeth? Okay, we'll talk about Kamelot. Well, first of all, I love Kamelot. Their vocalist for all the big albums that people know that are into power metal, their vocalist Roy Khan, he left in 2010, I believe. He's been gone for a while. They got this other vocalist who sounds almost just like him. His name is Tommy Karavec. This is the third album he's done with Kamelot, and he still does his best like Roy Khan impersonation. He sounds almost just like Roy, except
I didn't even know it was a different singer.
He's not. Yeah. Oh, so you thought it was the same guy?
I thought it was. Now, after listening to like Karma and then listening to Shadow Theory, I'm like, that could be the same singer if you asked me. If I didn't know,
he does a very good impersonation of him, kind of like the new singer for Queensryche does a great impersonation of Jeff Tate with just a little less emotion. Same thing here. This Tommy dude, God bless him, he's doing a great job. He's a great vocalist. It's just he doesn't emote like your other vocalists did. But okay, first reaction to Shadow Theory, it was okay. Second reaction, a second listen, third listen, I say it's a very, very good, solid symphonic power metal album. Okay, the first thing that happens is there's a minute symphonic intro that I skip over every time now, because that first song is just a bunch of fluff, whatever. The first real song is The Phantom Divine. It's a killer opener. Straightforward power metal. It's really, really good. Kicks the album off really well. Raven Light, the second song, is great too. But both of these songs, even the third one, they sound like songs from other Kamelot albums. They sound like that's the biggest problem I think this album has. All the songs sound like songs from their older albums, better songs from their older albums, There's a little bit of like industrial and modern metal hints here and there. And like they have this like cyberpunk dystopian type vibe with the lyrics and especially the videos that they have. There are 3 or 4 videos for this album. And it's very Blade Runner, like Philip K. Dick, and I could even call it. In the videos are cool because I like that kind of stuff, that whole cyberpunk vibe. The one song, Burn to Embrace, is really interesting. That has more of an industrial vibe to it. But then there's this like kids choir at the end of it, which is kind of weird. And I didn't really dig that at all. They kind of ruined the song for me. Amnesiac, Kevlar Skin, sorry. They're kind of on the heavier side. It mixes heaviness and melody pretty perfectly. The Mandatory Ballad, it sucks. I don't like it. I just like they've done the same song on their other albums better. It's a new drummer. Casey Grillo was not on this album, the drummer who's been with the band from the beginning, I think. This new drummer, he's okay, but I prefer Casey. Casey plays with Queensryche now. It's just, the more and more, like I was writing down my notes, and I want to say about this album because it's interesting, but it just kind of falls a little short because there's better Kamelot albums like the Black Halo, Epica, Karma, just to name 3 of them that are just way better. Mm-hmm. And Kamelot writes kind of like the same kind of style of songs. They have like a couple different styles of songs that they write. And this album, I never really listened to the other ones by their new singer. So I don't know if they're any better, but this one is kind of like they're just kind of retreading stuff. I think
Yeah.
lyrically, I enjoyed reading the lyrics and reading into it. It's like kind of like a loose concept of like, the constant stimuli of media and technology and like, you know, escaping into your own reality. Like I said, it's like kind of Philip K. Dick could have wrote these lyrics for a lot of this album, but it's just nothing they haven't done before. It's good, but it's not great, and that's kind of, it's like, it's not like I said, listen to Karma. Karma was up here. This one ain't there. It's good, but it just isn't great. And it's under an hour, so it's not really overly long. But
Yeah,
that's all I gotta say. I'm kind of torn because I like it. There's like every song I like, parts of it, and then it's just kind of like, heard it before.
Yeah, it definitely. I would say it doesn't hold a candle to Karma. Those are the aside. So I've only heard Silverthorn, Karma, and this one so far on my Kamelot journey. I plan to
Silverthorn's the first one with the new singer.
Okay, that one I really liked. You'd probably like that one. Maybe we'll do that next week. We'll kind of go on this Kamelot journey together. But for me, like, I was going in just off of the sales of Karma, of like this like super like epic like power metal thing that's like almost definitive power metal. Then we went to this, and I was really disappointed by it. But that's not to say it's a bad album at all. I would say objectively and musically, it's great. It has all of the ingredients, and it's funny because like I was thinking about that as I was listening to it. Like, it's got all these elements of so many other genres. It's got like these darker, heavier riffs, and we've got these lower tunings, we got these industrial bits, we got all this different stuff, and like you put all those things together and you think I would love it. But for me, the whole thing just kind of fell flat. I really had to like force myself to finish listening to it. And I could see now why a couple weeks ago when I started it, like, all right, I just kind of lost interest halfway through and said, screw it.
There's something missing to it. And
yeah, there definitely was something missing. I don't know what it is either, because it has, great vocal hooks. It has great guitar playing. It has great drumming. It has great everything. But it just, when the whole package comes together, it just doesn't come together in a way that I would come to expect with like a power metal group. And, like I said, you could probably argue that that's a good thing of like, all right, this is something that's different. It isn't your like Knights and Dragons and Kings and like all the same shit that you hear every other power metal band sing about constantly.
Right.
But that's what I want to hear when I go to bands like Kamelot and Rhapsody of Fire. Like, if I want to hear like post-apocalyptic and industrial kind of stuff, like, I'm going to go to my assignment, which was Dystopia by Megadeth, which is this whole like post-apocalyptic, and like there's literally a song on there, Post-America World or something.
Post-America World, yeah.
Post-America World, and like it's I gotta listen to more Megadeth. That's the headline of this whole thing, man. Because from the first 2 minutes of their opening track, what is it? The Threat is Real. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I'm trying to look at the. Oh yeah. So like, it just punched me in the face, and I loved it. Every riff was awesome. Dave Mustaine. Despite this, like his signature, like kind of growly, gravelly, like thrashy vocal, like the mix, it was just crystal clear. I heard every single word. I started paying attention to a lot of the lyrics, which happens a lot when I listen to Megadeth. I noticed that when I was listening to, oh God, I'm blanking on the one from '92.
Rust in Peace.
Rust in Peace. Yes. Like a lot of like anyone that's been following the show knows the last thing I care about is the lyrics, and the fact that they keep catching my attention says something about how potent these lyrics really are. They're awesome. There really wasn't, like, for me, funny enough, like the end of the album, it just kind of dropped off. Like Foreign Policy and Melt the Ice Away, like the last two I thought were just super duds. I was all ready to like write up this review and say there wasn't a single dud on this whole album. Like every single track I loved. Like I was like, if I had to pick one that I didn't like as much as the others, it would probably be Bullet to the Brain. And that's nothing against that song. It's a great song and it's awesome and it kicks ass and I love it, but just not as much as the title track, Fatal Illusion. Like going into like as far as like the fourth track, Death from Within, I was like, oh, it just keeps coming. It's just all these riffs are fantastic. The soloing is great. I don't know the other guitar player's name, but I saw him live. That guy is awesome. Him and Mustaine together, it's a match made in heaven. It's just great guitar playing.
Yeah, well, that's his first album with Megadeth. Now he used to play with a power metal band called Angra from South America.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've heard any kind of little bit of like the little power metal stuff kind of dropping in there, because I do.
I could hear it
There's
in his soloing. I could hear when it's the other guy, and I could hear when it's Dave. Nothing against Dave. Dave is one of the best thrash guitar players out there, and he's awesome, and he's got great technique and great chops, and his soloing is fantastic. But yeah, I could definitely tell the difference between the two, and I liked that a lot. I felt like it was really well balanced. You know, how much I'm hearing of guitar A, how much I'm hearing of guitar B, how much they're playing together on the riffs. Every riff, it just, you know, how many times I'm just sitting there like it was my day off today, so I just sat and listened to it cover to cover just once, so let me just give like here's like a real hot off the like first impression, just going through and not doing any research or anything, and like I'm just sitting there with my dog just like jamming like on the couch and just listening to it. I had headphones in, and just so many times I made this face, you know, like just like that. Oh yeah, that. Oh, there's you know, I'm sitting there like you know, like a schleb, like making all these sounds to myself, like, oh man, I definitely plan to revisit this album many times. As much as I plan to revisit Rust in Peace, as much as now I'm sitting here, because I have on my wish list of like I should go through all of Megadeth's discography, because if I had to pick a thrash band out of like the big four, my vote goes with Megadeth. Because for those that follow, you know, we did our thrash episode, you know, way back when we first started the channel, and like I'm not really big on thrash. You know, if you watch that video, you'll notice I really didn't have a whole lot to say, because I really don't know it all that well. I've been kind of dabbling with it, you know. So after we did that episode, I went through and did a bunch of Anthrax albums and some Slayer, and tried to like, let me just see what it's all about. And even then, I'm like, okay, it's great, but as far as my tastes are concerned, take it or leave it. I'm not really big on thrash, but Megadeth is an exception. They're really not. They're so much more than like a thrash band, you know, I think. And there was a lot of moments in this album, like, and the songs, just the overall pacing, like, you know, there's such an abundance of really great, cool, sludgy riffs that I just have come to love, and all the things I love about metal. This album encapsulated all of that very, very well for me. And I'm glad I got to see them live right when this was out, you know, on that tour when they played in Bethlehem that night. Where I got to see Metal Church for the first time. I got to see Amon Amarth live for the first time after getting into them, and that was awesome. And then and at that point I was like, I mainly went because of Amon Amarth, and I was like, well, sure, I'll stay for the whole show and see Megadeth, even though I'm not super into them. And I remember like being real floored by that live show, by seeing what they did, you know, visually, musically, you know. I was like right up in the front too, so like my eardrums rang for days. Lesson learned: wear earplugs when you go to shows. Oh man, I suffered.
You know, another
like
thing I really like about this album, and compared to the other albums that came before, they had a string of like albums that weren't that great before they did Dystopia. They had maybe 3 or 4 albums that I really didn't really like. But this
one didn't waste any time. It's so tight.
It's so good. And a lot of it, I think, is the new guitar player. And the drummer on the album is Chris Adler from Lamb of God. And he adds that.
Oh, okay.
He adds that modern metal drumming. That's how I could explain it. That it's been missing from a Megadeth album for a while. And I think that just tightens it all up and gives it like a more modern sound.
Yeah.
And,
it's awesome.
And Dave, as far as lyrics go and singing, Dave is the most pissed off he's been in a long time on this album.
And that's saying something.
Yeah. You know, yeah. But it's a great album. And if you haven't checked it out, anyone that hasn't checked it out, I think they should. They're Megadeth's in the process of recording a new album. I can't wait to hear that.
Ooh, that's exciting.
But yeah, Dystopia surprised the hell out of me, because the album before that wasn't that great. The album before that wasn't that great. Megadeth had a few, like I said, that weren't they weren't that great. They weren't like Rust in Peace or Countdown to Extinction, or either. Hey, I'm a big fan of Euthanasia, even Cryptic Writings. Then from there, kind of went downhill for a good 10, 15 years. You know, as far as the quality is concerned. There's a couple of good songs here and there on each album, but there was never a really solid album until Dystopia. From back then, you know. And it's another. Brendan, are you still with us?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I every time I talk about Megadeth, I remember talking to you. Everyone, Brendan Stillman, he was our guest for our Dream Theater episode. I I remember talking to you about Train of Consequences, and you remember you were like, "Son of a bitch, it's just hard to learn." You're trying to get that riff down,
Yeah.
and that just goes to show you that Megadeth isn't just straightforward like thrash and metal music. There's always something kind of crazy about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, there's even some like almost borderline progressive elements that come through a little bit. I noticed, tempo changes, key changes, kind of stuff like that. Like Dystopia, like took me for a ride. I loved it. And I definitely am excited because right now the only albums I've really heard cover to cover are Dystopia and Rust in Peace. And I loved the hell out of both of them. So
I loved, I was staying quiet because I didn't know how you guys edited this, but the album Risk I actually like a lot.
That is strange.
With Insomnia. I love this. I love the song Insomnia.
Okay.
It's one of those, it sticks to me, and somebody got that for me as a present. Now I haven't heard too much of their stuff lately, and I know around Mr. Marola, I probably should never admit that I haven't heard much Megadeth lately, but because that's one thing I do remember, you're Maiden on Dream Theater, he's Megadeth. So yeah.
Well, you should do yourself a favor and listen to their newest album, Dystopia.
Yeah.
There's a lot to love. There's a lot to love with it. Really, like I said, their new guitar player is the best guitar player they've had since Marty Friedman, I'd say. And he adds this like almost like a just like power metal kind of Celtic-y vibe to it in a little bit here and there. It's really neat stuff because he's a Brazilian guitar player from the band Angra, and they always would like kind of mesh genres together. They were a pretty decent power metal band back in the early 90s. And again, their drummer he just adds that tightness to it that they haven't had since their drummer Nick Menza, way back in the early 90s. But yeah, I'd say probably it's the best album since like that kind of stuff. And I know, like you said, you like at least some of the stuff off of Risk. Insomnia is probably the best song on that album, as far as I'm concerned. But have you heard Kamelot though? Have you checked them out yet?
No. And what I did was I just wrote that down as a reminder. So I have that. Kamelot, I'm going to check out Dystopia. So yeah.
Well, if you want to check out a good album by Kamelot, check out the album called Karma. That's the one I gave to Danton to listen to introduce him to Kamelot. They're really good and musically, vocally, they're great power.
They're tight. Yeah. Good stuff.
So this week we got one that's kind of like I'm going to say if you like Kamelot, sure, listen to the newest one, Shadow Theory.
Just to be fair, I'm not a big fan of it.
You're not going to get blown away. You're not a big fan. But we both agree that if you haven't listened to a Megadeth album in a while, Dystopia.
You need to listen to Dystopia. Period. If you haven't listened to Dystopia, you need to listen to it. Simple as that. I should have listened to it when I walked away from the concert that night. I should have found it and checked it out because I remember sure enough, they played so much more than just stuff off the new album, but they did a lot of selections off of that album, and I remember really liking it. And I don't know why I didn't go ahead and check them out and listen to them. I'm stupid, but now I'm kicking myself because it's been like 5 years already, and so now I'm just hearing it for the first time. So here we are.
Well, now you know. Now you know.
Yeah.
And knowing is half the battle.